We're live. My name is Steve Giguere.
And I'm Mike Foster.
Welcome to this show, which is a visual newsletter for your impatient world, full of wonderful tips and tricks for Kubernetes, automation, news about cybersecurity, Kubernetes, and all things wonderful like that.
And this week we have a bunch of Microsoft stuff for you. You know, the Windows 11 leak, a little bit of an attack surface analyzer. We also got the MITRE defend matrix. So not just the attack matrix, but the defend matrix now. Talking about human errors in security. Can humans be the root cause? And we have Steve doing a little MetalLB and Raspberry Pi demo for you at the end. So thanks for joining the show. Yes, a show about K8s and stuff. So if you like what you're seeing, follow on Twitch, subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment. We also have all the links that are posted to YouTube with the timestamps after. So if you're looking to see what we're talking about, you can check us out there as well. Steve, what's new?
What's new with me? I've been automating this show. Along with my Pi, I've got a script now that's Michael just said we've been a little bit lax at putting timestamps into our YouTube. The links are there, but getting the timestamps correct, there's automation, none of it works. So now, like while we're talking, if you see me like looking off screen and doing weird stuff, it's because I've got my Stream Deck doing timestamping as we're talking. So we'll see if I screw that up. That's what I've been working on.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. No, it's gonna be sweet.
How about yourself? How's your week?
Just watching Montreal go to the finals. As two Canadians, we were watching it. There hasn't been a Canadian team in the NHL finals in a long time now, I think. It feels like forever. Since Vancouver, I think.
It's the Vancouver riots.
Yeah, I think that was a while ago. But
we don't
anyways,
take it well when we lose.
Yeah, hoping. I mean, Montreal there's videos of them doing dumb stuff when they win. So who knows? Yeah, that's what I've been watching. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Nice. Shall we leap straight in?
Yeah, let's get into the tech stuff.
All right. Let me.
First order of business.
Ping. Here we go. I put this one into our list, and it is because Gene came back to ask a very honest question, and that was, as time progresses, software becomes more and more difficult to add things, and when only one person is responsible for the entire system. So you know what I mean by that, that as software ages, it becomes technical debt. And there becomes a point where you just want to throw it away. And he was, I think for a talk or something, or maybe his next book, he's like, does anybody have an analogy for this that is the same, that isn't software? And I actually thought he'd get tons of really smart responses. Like, does anything come to your mind right away?
To me, it's more of like an economic model, right? Like you have an industry normally takes off, there's a massive growth level. And then, once people have realized there's money into it and you get patent protection and you get lawyers involved and you have a little bit of industry disruption, you kind of have these, maybe a couple main players in the industry, then you get like an economy or a specific industry that starts to mature, and there's less innovation in that industry because you've maxed out where that industry can go, and you kind of get these oligopolies, right? And so I kind of see software as the same thing. You're so focused on outgrowing and outpacing that in the end you end up with 3 or 4 softwares that kind of do the same thing, that's slightly different. It's really hard to make any changes because they have all these existing contracts lumped on them, probably some SLAs, probably some sort of issue. And then engineering wants to make changes, but can't make changes because the SREs are afraid you're going to break stuff. And whereas like if you're in a startup, you're just pushing and pushing and then rolling back if something bad happens, right? That's my analogy. I don't know if it works, but
well, you did well to start with just being generic about business, but then actually you kind of went back to software again because you said SRE.
I was trying to link them,
but well, like the most common one I saw on the list, which I sort of stopped on, is people referring. There must be a lot of people doing house renovation during the pandemic because a lot of people were like, "My house." Once it gets to a certain age, you can add rooms, and then at one point you just want to demolish it and build a new one.
Yeah,
that's like, not bad. Yeah, a lot of people said that.
I was having that conversation with a friend, and yeah, there just becomes a point where you kind of look at it and you say, okay, well, a startup built this piece of software, and maybe there's a bunch of technical debt. Because you had to chuck a bunch of money and do a startup to grow that, why don't you take the same approach to the previous software and say, okay, here's all the technical debt we have. Let's go and invest a ton of money to just reproduce this product in a more efficient way. Right. But a lot of the times you don't want to do that because you already have a working product. Like, how do you justify throwing another, couple $1 million at a bunch of engineers to reproduce it?
Doesn't Amazon actually work that way though? Like I had a friend who worked there. I mean, if you do too, let me know. But he said that they did have moments where like that super expensive e-commerce interface would be up and then a whole other team would be refactoring it. Like from scratch.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the reasons why Amazon avoids taxes too, is because if they just keep on reinvesting in stuff, right? Like you're never turning a profit. It's like, hey, we need new software. Okay, chuck more money in there, right? It's the growth model of companies. But
oh wow, you twisted that one. That was good.
Well, it's a way to do it. Well, you can get a piece of software and then just milk it, right, for the money and take the profits, or you can reinvest it.
Nice
options.
So they're doing the right thing, and they're not paying tax.
Yeah,
which is the wrong thing. But
yeah, well, federal income tax. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, so it's interesting. So if you're interested in the responses, go check out the link. Was already on YouTube, so you can click through and you can scroll down. Somebody angrily said government. The longer it's there, the more it can't be changed, and it can never be changed. Rant. So I was like, yeah, some of them
that does kind of check out.
Yeah, it does. All right, shall we? Jump into the next one here. Let me look this back up. And you added this, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, this is Windows put this out. This is a version 2 of an attack surface analyzer that they've had previously, and I kind of want to check this out. I want to see if I can play around with this over the weekend, and then I might come next week with this on my PC. But yeah, so the attack surface analyzer for DevOps engineers, IT security auditors. And it just goes in and looks at user accounts, file systems, services, certificates, registry. Oh, there you are. You have it up. Wi-Fi networks, and just kind of gives you an overall view of your system and issues that you're having. So they released a 2.0. Interested to check it out, especially with the next thing that we were going to talk about, which is like the Windows 11 leak. So
do I just jump straight into that? Because that is very relevant.
This is just something if you're on Windows and you want to kind of prod your system a little bit, it's pretty useful. Yeah, and then Windows 11 leaked. So what we know so far about the new OS, and it's interesting to see the race of them trying to get out ahead of this now, because all of a sudden my page has been filled up with Windows announcements of, hey, here's the new UI, here are the changes, here's this, because they need to actually push up all of their PR stuff so that it doesn't get leaked, right?
But the actual, they've lost all the kapow that comes with the product release.
Yeah, one of the reasons I put this in here is, would you ever run an operating system that's been leaked online? like that.
It says right here it's legitimate.
If this leak build is legitimate, and it appears that it is. But here's the thing: is if I'm running like Ubuntu, if I'm running CentOS, I'm going to check it against the SHA-256, the checksum, right, and the GPG keys and things like that. Like I'm going to make sure that when I download it, it's the correct build that CentOS is giving me. You can't do that with this Windows download. There's no check.
No.
So
even
if I
you're
leak it
talking
online,
like somebody who works for a security company.
Yeah, it might be legitimate, but all I need to do is just put a couple extra files like as executables, and you probably wouldn't know unless you're pulling up Task Manager and watching stuff in the background, right?
Well,
and even then I could hide it.
You wouldn't, and you could hide it. And the fact that it is leaked means that there are other versions. People are getting the leaked version, making it malicious, and putting it back now. That's definitely happening. We have no articles to support this, but it's definitely happening.
I mean, that's going to be one of the best ways to hack somebody. Somebody's going to come to me and download something and run it. Yeah, it's great.
And I'll if you find the best website that makes the leaked version the easiest to download, that's the bad version.
Mm-hmm. I will say the coolest thing: running Android apps on Windows 11. Windows doing some pretty big things.
Yeah, I mean, so you've seen what's new in 11 now that we all have it. Cool stuff. Go download it.
Okay, here's what I think is going to eventually happen is you're going to have Windows and you're going to have your Android phone or something like that, and you're going to be able to drop your Android phone or plug it into your computer and run all your apps on your computer. So it's like your phone is your secondary PC sort of thing. I think that's what they're trying to do. Anyways.
But it's kind of Apple as well, though. It's not like.
But Apple doesn't let anybody else in. So Windows it's kind of a big move from Windows. Says they got into Kubernetes. They have a bunch of open source operating systems that they'll support now. It's a interesting move.
It is an interesting move, and I cannot wait until they have that integration, because that's going to make our show so much more interesting with all the security things they introduce.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll check back because I'm sure there's going to be some Windows 11 hacked 50,000 people's PCs because they downloaded the wrong Windows 11 version. Something's going to happen.
I'm not going to put a bet on that one. I think you're totally right. All right. Do you want to jump on this one? A lot of it, by the way, for those watching, I think Mr. Foster here had a very dull week at work because he was very active in the curation of content this week. All right, here we go. This is cool, though. It was good stuff.
It is. It's also SSH keys are good enough. You just need to manage them properly. They are infinitely better than passwords. And there was interesting conversation because it's like, what if somebody gets access to your laptop and has root password? Well, you should have a passphrase on your SSH key. That's different, right? Or you use some sort of YubiKey or something like that if you're really that worried about it. But, MFA, yeah, sure, you could do that. It is pretty cool. And I thought it was an interesting thing because it's like, you can configure the Google Authenticator. It's neat. You have, I think that most people who are sysadmins would be okay with simply using SSH keys with passphrases. So it seems a little bit overkill, but whoever set this up, I'm going to test it out because it's pretty cool.
It is cool. I could actually probably do this on my Pis. Mm-hmm. See, I do everything on my Pis. Put some, because it's so secure. There's so much data that people might want, but it would be a pretty easy thing for me to test. So I agree. Let's have a go with it. I think it's cool. I think there might be a time in 10 years from now where we're going to think about the show, and when we're on show 2,500, and we're like, remember that time we said that was a bad idea? That was wrong. We do that. Okay, cool. Here's the exciting one. I love this, and I've seen this in a lot of newsletters. Like this top of the leaderboard.
Mm-hmm. And if Magno's still on, I know he did a lot of work with the attack matrix with Windows and Microsoft on a couple updates. So I waiting for some feedback on this defend matrix.
Yeah. So are we going to get? So there is a container and Kubernetes. Like there is a cloud native mini version of the attack that came out. Are we now going to have a defend version that's going?
Yeah, probably going to happen. Yeah, it's so for anybody who's unaware, the MITRE attack framework from MITRE, I believe the original one came out in 2012, I think. And it was just a whole cybersecurity, here's a checklist, here's the different ways you can harden and detect and isolate, that people are going to attack you, right? And I want to say it was like 120 techniques in total with
it's in fact
14 categories. It's insane. Yeah.
There you go.
So it's massive. And then it was originally adapted, taken to show Kubernetes and show things like, exposed dashboards, exposed endpoints, the tiller, right, with Helm. And so now they're taking a different approach and they're going with the defend because why not?
Because it makes sense. It's helpful. They go, it's like to go out there and say, all right, here's a super comprehensive way that all the people can attack you. What do I do about it? Oh, sorry, that's somebody else's job. But yeah, here's all the ways. So it's nice that they've gone away and went, all right, here is a list of ways that you can harden, detect, isolate, deceive, and evict. Amazing. Oh, we should have pointed that out. The stages are different. The stages have changed to kind of be the flip side as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, honeypot, integrated honeypot. There's decoy personas, right? One thing, and I'm not sure if it's there, but there should be a duplication for backups, because that is one way that you defend, right? So one thing I didn't see, but maybe that doesn't fall under the purview. I'm sure that they thought about it and we're just kind of like, man, it's not really defense. It's more of a
just search for the dupe. It's not there.
Yeah, it's more of a what's the word for it? Like when you're putting out a fire.
Resilience.
Yeah.
Reactive.
Yeah, it's like when you've already been attacked, you're going to back up your database with some sort of copy. But
it's probably about. I think your proactive version is probably more sensible.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm sure that this is going to come up in Kubernetes now of how to defend in Kubernetes. And the only tough thing is it doesn't really apply that well to Kubernetes.
Well, that's why people made the attack one, right? There's a bunch of irrelevant stuff in there, and you're like, yeah.
And there's one issue with the defense side of things, because let's say you apply it to Kubernetes and you say, okay, well, everything should be denied by default, and we should have the highest level of PSPs or PSP++ now. I guess that's the new one coming out. It doesn't really work, because you're going to have a security team that's going to pull up this defense matrix at a company, and it's going to say, we need to make sure that we're doing all of these things. And all of those things that are defending it are slowing down development by a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Reality is not factored into this at all.
Yeah. And that's, I actually think that the attack matrix, in terms of how it's applied for a lot of companies and how people are going to use it, makes more sense than the defense matrix, because you can over defend your systems, right? You can lock it down so tight, nothing gets done.
Right. It's not a factoring risk. It doesn't filter based on risk. Well, that'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Should.
Yeah, I think there's a business idea in there. If you can somehow take the defend matrix and then create the right risk assessment that goes and makes the right actions appear. Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. But, start a consultancy service.
Yeah, exactly. They're purposely a little vague.
Yeah. Right. Speaking of attacks, shall we jump to this CVE?
New sting.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
I must have watched that 20 times after I made it. And so it still makes me smile every time.
Yeah, it's too good. Oh, man.
All right. Wait a second. Back to the show. Less Sesame Street. And hey, there we go.
Yes, this is
another one of yours.
Yeah, CV. It came out, I believe, a week and a half ago. So we're not breaking news here, but there is a reference counting bug that leads to local privilege escalation. It's a pretty high bug. I believe there's another link, and it linked it at like a 9.8 or something like that.
If we go directly to the CVE, which is that the link there? That's a 0 day. No, that's his.
Yeah, but
If we look it up, it is high.
Mhm.
I don't have the link here.
It was a different one.
But nevertheless, if you like to geek out, like if you're a C person and you like to geek out on these type of bugs, which are, because I'm an XC programmer for like a good reason, because it's so hard to get things right. And this is detailed how this happens. And it's like, look at this. Look how little the scroll bar is. It's a little thing. We could do the whole show on this. Did you read through all this?
Yeah, like a long time
You
ago,
did?
though.
Oh,
Huh?
well, you can.
Well, yeah, like a couple days ago. It's a lot. The exploitation's there.
There we go.
It's interesting. I'll say that, and it makes sense. New features mean new attack surfaces. Yeah, it was a new feature that was added to the Linux kernel, I believe, in 5.1, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's
read it.
Honestly, it's amazing how the people that spend the time to dig into this stuff and find it. Here it is. The vulnerability affected the Linux kernel from version 5.6 to 5.7. It was introduced in 5.1. So watch out for that.
Okay. Wow. And is it patched?
Yes.
All right. So patch up, people.
Of the kernel. Mm-hmm.
There's a legit patch we're going to want to do. All right. Yeah, it's so detailed. It's impressive.
It's a great write-up.
I don't. Who are these people that find these things? I guess it's their job, right? I mean, I would, if this was my job, I'd go nuts on this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But all it really does is remind me why I don't write C code anymore at the moment. Yeah, it's pretty. It's amazing. All right. So moving swiftly along to, I think,
the crazy stuff.
This is. Oh, we're already at that new section. Only one CVE. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, it's a slow CVE week. Great for everybody.
All right. This is my favorite headline for sure.
Yep.
That's just your reaction. Let's get rid of this stuff here. Listen to who I am. Turns out, this is one of those ones people want to sit down for. If you pay the ransom on your whatever you're doing, Windows XP network that got hit by ransomware, they're likely to try again. That's amazing.
What? Steve, no way.
If you kidnap the king's daughter and he pays the ransom and you give the daughter back, go kidnap the daughter again. That's
saying when somebody's fiscally incentivized to do something and they're rewarded that they might do it again.
They'll do it again. Yeah, that's right. That's it. That's the lesson. I was
gonna post something actually because I believe it's the head of cybersecurity for the U.S. government. I'm not sure what the title is officially, but basically came out and said stop paying ransomware payments for this. Exact reason. It's kind of this weird, I don't know, like if somebody gives malware and locks down your entire database, you kind of have to pay it because you need it back. Otherwise you have no database, but it's also on you because you don't have any sort of mitigation techniques or backups, right? Yeah, hit by the same threat group. There you go. Like okay, it's like playing tag. Like I got you, and I'm going to count to 3. Like give you a head start. No, just kidding. Got you again.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's just as they're like, oh, we paid. Whew, our data's back. Okay, should we back it up? What? We've been hit again. What? Just now? It's crazy. It seems. Did they pay again though? Like, is this that's the survey we're going to get next week? It turns out people who paid ransom twice hit third time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess we don't have to dive too deep into
just more
philosophies of that one. All right. Oh, value my privacy. All right. Privacy watchdogs in public, ban in public spaces. This is really curious. Another one of yours.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Yeah, EU privacy watchdogs call for facial recognition ban. I don't know how I feel about this one. I understand it. You also don't really have a right to privacy in public. I don't really think that that's an argument that you could make in court and defend. Because realistically, like, so facial recognition just speeds up a human process, right? If you were, because I know the UK has the most CCT cameras per capita, other than I believe like China, but I don't really know what those numbers are. So realistically, you could just staff up and have 1,000 people just sitting there watching cameras and trying to recognize people's faces as you go by. If you're going to speed up that process in terms of an automated system to just quickly tell you who people are, what's the difference? Because we don't like it being done quicker, or we don't like that information can be correlated faster because of this technology. So it's kind of one of those, if I can do the same thing by sitting a human behind it, instead I'm doing it faster, are you really infringing on privacy? Now, I think that there's the double-edged sword of where's the information going and how's it being saved, right? So the US and the UK can't spy on each other, or you can't spy on your citizens, right? But what they do is they just trade information. So the UK will spy on American citizens and then give the US information to spy, like what they've collected. So I kind of understand that aspect, but I'm waiting for somebody to really like make a very articulate argument as to why in public you have the right not to have some sort of facial recognition or video on you.
I think it's just a bit of I don't even call it a reaction. People think that it means something to say, no, you can't be facial recognizing me when I'm walking around town. Hold on, my phone just rang. Boop, 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 boop. Let's tell the world where I am and put it away. Let's take some photos that are stamped with my location and put them on Instagram. It's like we're already volunteering all this information anyway. This is just slightly easier, and it's probably used for a better reason, like actual security as opposed to data mining and advertising.
Yeah. I don't know if the better reason argument is the best.
I tried.
Yeah. Because I kind of understand too, if you're getting all this information collected, it's there forever. So who's to stop somebody going back 20 years in the past and saying, hey, I saw you at this place at this, like next to this person who we don't like now, right? You're associated with them forever. So and it's not like, okay, yeah, you're giving the government information. It doesn't mean that there aren't individuals who could use it to exploit certain things, right? Or like it's going to get to the point where I can set up a camera on a street, hook a computer up, and just watch when people leave, and then know, okay, you're out of the house. I can do X, Y, Z, right? I can go steal from you. So there's like a lot of stuff that can happen that I think
can already happen.
It can. It's just like for some reason, we're okay with the government having the means to do this all the time because we trust them. So that's, I guess, my counter argument to myself. It's like, why? Yeah. And that's, I don't know. I still need to make up my mind about it. But like, you have Bluetooth on your phones. If you have Bluetooth active, all you need to do is set up a couple of Bluetooth hotspots, and you're constantly basically saying, hey, I'm here. Here's my MAC address. Right?
Yeah.
So you're walking through a city. Basically, all I would need to do is just correlate, and I could figure out like the path of you through a city as you like go and scream out to all like the receptors. So
in fact, you should tell the government that, and they would probably go, oh, very good point. Let's just ditch these cameras.
Well, that's what they were doing for coronavirus tracking.
Yeah. They'll just put up some. Exactly. So it's like, it's like they could easily give into that, because facial recognition is so old school, and go, we can track you anyway. You've all got phones. The only people we can't track is my dad, who's walking around with a Nokia 3310. So he's invisible. Okay, fine. But otherwise, I don't know. One good thing about part of the camera things that I've seen, I used to, in a previous job, can't remember how long ago it was, long enough ago that it probably works now. They were working on motion recognition that could tell before it happened that somebody was going to try to attack a bank machine using the camera over it, just by their body movements, that they were about to do something aggressive, because they had a signature database of these styles of behaviors. So they could look at a crowd and they could tell the person that was most likely to kick off. And it was like,
yeah,
it was amazing.
And you think about it, because it can do that, and you can train it, and you can consistently train it over time, and you can keep that profile, right? What's the difference between that and maybe a cop who's been in the force for 40 years? Like, cops go up to cars, and to a certain extent, they can kind of tell when people are being shifty or when you're hiding something. You get to read people a little bit better over the years, right? So again, would I rather have a machine that's just flagging things like that, or pay somebody to be in harm's way that's sitting there that might have a bad read that's a human, right? Because you get that sometimes.
You do. I guess we could. This is what we could go on and on about, because I could say like the camera and the automation isn't going to have a different opinion because they had a bad breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that at least you get consistency as opposed to the kind of weirdness that us humans do.
Yeah, and you also get maybe the less confrontational stance of, you're going to rob the machine. Go ahead, rob the machine. Don't hurt anybody, but now we know exactly who you are, kind of thing, right?
Yeah, we're going to get the money back. It's all cool.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, we're going to do it, and we're going to apprehend you in probably like the least aggressive way possible, instead of trying to do it in the middle of a bank with a bunch of people around. So there's definitely upsides to it. I'm also sort of a fan of, if you're a private industry, I think you should be able to, like, if you're going to implement something like this and you're a bank, like, you don't really have the right to use a bank and say, hey, you can't record me, right? It's like, you're going to the bank. Of course, you're going to be recorded.
Yeah. So it's their house.
Anyways.
All right. That was a long one. This might be longer. Shall we move to, you alluded to this in our intro, human error.
Mm-hmm.
Always the fault of all humans, particularly the interns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, this is Red Hat. And it actually, one of the reasons it came up on my timeline is because it mentioned StackRox and ACS and the transfer over and Kubernetes configuration issues and all this stuff. But I put in the WTF section because I think there's a conversation around, is human error ever the root cause of a security issue? Can it ever be attributed? And I know there are probably a lot of people in security who do not blame the intern / human error as an issue, right? But when we talk about, let's say, a CSO or a CEO not taking things seriously, that's attributed to malice and not human error. So I'm kind of like, if a CEO says, hey, I'm not going to spend money on cybersecurity, to me, that's a human error of the CEO, because they're not putting resources where they should be putting them, right? Anyways, so there's this weird back and forth of, we like human error, but we don't like human error in security. That's what I find. And I think that there just needs to be a little bit more of a nuanced view of, you can blame human errors to fix the process where you can, but eventually you can only do so much before somebody, falls victim to a phishing attack or something like that, right? Like, no system is completely secure. There's always some issue or some method of attack or social engineering. So it's
and humans are always responsible.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have robots or automation building automation yet. There's always humans building it, and they're always building it to the best of their ability. And that's what we're meant to, like, that's the psychological safety you're meant to have at an organization, is that we're not just going to play the blame game on humans when the thing that will go wrong, at some point goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to go, all right, how do we have a blameless postmortem on this? Whether it's a security incident or downtime or, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's just alarming. It's alarming that stat there. 60% of the surveyed said human error was the cause of data breaches and failures. Well, okay, that's unfortunate, because.
So one of the issues I think that Kubernetes brings in to the fold is that it's open by default, right? Like, it changes. If you have a completely secure, let's say, Kubernetes cluster where you come in and there's the most restrictive PSPs and network policies default deny, and you can't run anything as root, and there's no privilege escalation by default, then you have to go through some sort of process to eliminate that, to get higher privilege escalation. Well, then you're going to get nothing done, right? So what you end up having is a bunch of people who build functionality into Kubernetes and put their applications in, and then let's say, throw RBAC and network policies at the wall and see what sticks. So it's, and I don't necessarily think it's human error, but also there really haven't been, Kubernetes has only been really around for 6 years. I think it's on the 7th year now, but widely adopted for 3. A lot of companies don't have these processes in place. So it's kind of one of those, it is human error. But the point being is, as security starts to catch up and as Kubernetes matures, then we should have more of a conversation of process, right? Like what is your process when implementing a network policy? What's your process when doing these things? If you haven't answered that question, you're doing Kubernetes wrong, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with anything. If you don't have a process written down and that you understand at least is consistent, you're doing more than Kubernetes wrong. But also understand that you're treading into territory where if you start saying, well, what's best practice? It's like, I don't know. We're getting better at figuring out worst practice, but best practice is few and far between in terms of like modern cloud native and Kubernetes. So there's going to be mistakes. And I mean, I realize this is a bit of a plug for StackRox, but that's why StackRox exists and is successful, because it's hard. And they look for things like this. It's the same as what we do for scanning Terraform. You guys do for Kubernetes in a very good way. So I guess this is a good article because it's driving home that, like up top, misconfigurations have resulted in major vulnerabilities being discovered nearly a third of the time. Not CVEs necessarily, just misconfigurations, like top of the leaderboard in terms of low-hanging fruit. And yet, I think there's a stat in here where they say that people really aren't that interested. Only 47% were worried about exposures due to misconfigurations. Well, that means just once again, our show is going to have a lot more material.
Yeah. And like, it's kind of one of the issues with Kubernetes too, is there are so many different ways to configure things. And a lot of people will take monoliths and drop them into Kubernetes and create anti-patterns and don't use things properly. And is that human error? Is that an issue with process? Do you lock things down tighter? Because as you lock things down tighter, people are going to get more upset and then not use the platform because they can't figure it out. Do you remember your conversation, your tweet with Liz Rice? Or it was Liz Rice's tweet, somebody messaging on Twitter about, why don't you do this? And it was like mounting volumes in or something like that.
Oh, we actually kind of mentioned it recently when we were talking about probes and stuff. And it was a question where somebody was mounting the script for their probe, and I went, that's bad. It's bad. I don't know what best practice is, but that's bad practice. And they were arguing with me about it. And so I asked Liz, I said, if you say it's bad, then that'll help, Liz.
Yeah.
And she did even better. She just put the question on her Twitter with 10 billion followers and let the internet decide it was bad.
Yeah. And that's the issue is with Kubernetes, there's like 4 or 5 different ways to achieve the same outcome. And you get in these calls and somebody's like, why these are best practice policies? Yeah, they're best practice because at the end of the day, you need to be smart enough to go through them. You can't just look at something like a checklist and then say, hey, we've achieved security because we followed the process, right? Going through like the MITRE defense framework and saying, yeah, we've checked off all these boxes. That doesn't necessarily mean you're secure. And really nobody's fully secure. Hardened, let's say, is a better word.
I was reading this bit and I said, this is a bit like, the gospel we preach here about DevOps and security in silos. And I was like, how have they not said DevSecOps? Oh, there it is. There it is.
Get your bingo cards out.
Ding, 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 ding. Yep. All right. All right, cool. That was a good article. That was an article by the New Stack, who we'll be talking more about shortly. I snuck something in that you don't know about.
No, I read about this. You good? I'm
okay. Oh,
yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, I actually read the whole article.
It is one of all the articles we have that I go through and I go paragraph. This one I read everything because it just plays out like a story, and it's long enough that it's hard. Like, it's not a short article. It goes into the detail about how he could basically. Let me see. How does he write it? Take over an iCloud account, essentially.
Yeah. So
on the forgot password endpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. So Apple at the time, basically when you would submit your OTP with your 6 digits, it would check your IP address and where you're coming from. But if you randomize the IP address, it wouldn't lock you out. So if you just switched IP address every time you were sending a 6-digit number to break OTP, it wouldn't stop you. But it did. They did have like a deny list on certain cloud providers because they obviously realized cloud providers, you could just set up a VM and just spam it, right? So this person went around and figured out a couple of their IPs and different providers that aren't deny listed, spammed them with like these 6 digits to finally break through. And then all you really need access to is the phone to receive like a, hey, you're trying to sign in through OTP. Is this okay? And then as long as you have that, you basically, so you got around 2-factor by just spamming the OTP 6 digit and then just having a phone number. Go ahead.
I don't do this stuff, right?
IP addresses, yeah.
It gets to, when he got to this point, he goes, so therefore the attacker would require 28,000 IP addresses and send up to 1 million requests to successfully verify the 6-digit code, which you would think was too hard. And then next question, looks easy. Like, okay.
I love it.
As he said, well, anyway, so I love the use of memes throughout, but it works. So now I can change the password of any Apple ID just with their phone number, and he's done it. But what comes afterwards is him trying to report it to Apple and their persistent kind of denial of it.
I will, not in defense of Apple, because I'm not sure exactly what they're denying, but this wouldn't work if you have more than one device or if you've updated your iCloud in any way, because there is a couple other ways that the Apple stops you. Now, I don't know, because I've had Apple for over 10 years now as a product.
Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure where that line is, but they definitely, first of all, he sent it into them. They didn't respond for 6 months, I think. Mm-hmm. They patched it, but then didn't really acknowledge the patch in any of the updates. And then they said it was so small that it didn't really need to be acknowledged.
Right.
Which is an interesting take. And they're like, oh, it only affects a small subset. It's like, well, shouldn't you really announce that in your product update when you're saying there's a security patch? No, they didn't.
Yeah. What? But yeah, they did. Is there a point where they actually got onto a call with him and to kind of go through and explain it, and eventually they acknowledged. I think they eventually acknowledge it because they're trying. Here's where you were saying you're trying to deny it, and he eventually goes through it. Essentially, approves it. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's still going, and then he gets a bounty email. They finally admit, oh, okay, thank you, and they give him a bounty of $18,000, which sounds like a lot of money, right? Because it is. But
yeah,
if you look at what Apple offers in terms of bounties for iCloud account takeover, specifically, they say they'll give you 250,000. And then among the scenarios, passcode endpoint was patched to mark from report. The actual bounty should be 350. He's done all the math based on their claimed bounty payouts. And so he got a little bit annoyed that they totally and there's the screenshots. And so
yeah, and he even says like he could sell it to other agencies, right?
For more than that. He could have not sold them and sold it, and he'd have made more than the 350,000 for sure. And so they gave him.
And you wonder why the bug bounties, why these big companies reward them too. Other people will pay. It's not always.
Yeah. It's crazy. So and they stuck to the 18,000, and he said, nah. He just gave it back and said, forget it. He didn't take it, which I probably would have taken it anyway. But I would have written the article.
Yeah, if he has a Patreon, go donate there.
It could have been. I didn't read that. Did you see? I bet you if he took the money, he wouldn't have been able to put this article out in such detail. There's probably an NDA or something involved on it, right?
most likely. And I mean, he did
So
wait,
he's-
right? Because they didn't report anything for a while. So I believe he
Yeah.
called it out too. He said like, I've had this article written up, and they got on a call trying to say like, if you're going to write the article, do this. Like, this is not how we see it, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting one. If you want to check it out, it'll be on the YouTube later. Definitely worth the read, honestly. And I'm pretty sure you could probably find it on Reddit too, or something like that.
All right. I'll just go to our YouTube, and the links are there.
Mhm.
Awesome. So is this the Helm vulnerability next? Yes, it is. This is almost a CVE.
This was supposed to be. Yeah, this was a CVE. I think
it's in WTF. We miscategorized it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Helm had a CV for their 3.6. I'm not going to hit the cookie monster again. I'm sorry, Steve. We already did that one. Next time. But yeah, Helm had a little CVE issue. And it even says there, Helm is a tool for managing charts, packages of pre-configured Kubernetes resources. In a prior version, so Helm has like a Helm config file, which if you're pushing to a repository, you can put your username and password in there so that you don't have to keep entering it. Kind of like if you're in VS Code and you save your GitHub account, right? It'll just hold those credentials every time you're trying to do a git push or anything like that. But yeah, so Helm had this issue where it was sending those credentials to GitHub when the credentials weren't necessarily needed to log in. And not just to GitHub, but anything else where you were using Helm. So that's no bueno. We don't just send our username and password out for the sake of it.
Yeah. And so when we first saw this, we were talking like, what's the attack vector? Like, where is there, like GitHub was the example where this is now trusted peer to trusted peer, B2B, and if it's not in plain text, which it wouldn't be, right? Then how could you game it? I was thinking that if you could squat or something on a chart and then use the reference to reference back to me, Mr. Malicious, maybe that's an attack vector.
Yeah, it was any domains referenced in the Helm chart that would get sent this. So like if the Helm chart was referencing some sort of other URL or domain in the chart, they would get the credentials sent to them. Does that make sense? So like if you have some sort of other domain, you just listen. So if I know you're building a chart and you're referencing my domain, I just sit there and you send me your username and password in your Helm configuration.
It's possible. It's fixed now. Oh, I'm not fixed on mine. They showed me this was in 3.6.1 and I went and checked. I'm on 3.5, so I gotta get on that. All right, we are on Big Spender.
Yes.
All right, this is cool because we showed that new stack article earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Insight Partners and the new stack acquired the new stack. Now, doesn't say how much, does it?
No, I don't believe so. Unfortunate, but yeah, new stack gets bought out. That is pretty crazy.
Who is that? Isn't that Alex? What's his name? He's the guy that does all the main. He's the name I associate it with this. And I'm blanking on his last name at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a photo of a dude there. Is that him? It is. Why didn't they say
Alex Williams?
There we go.
Founder in chief.
That's super cool because the new stack is great. And it's cool that they're going to get some crazy funding. Insight Partners were one of the major investors in Aqua Security. And they remind me of the Andreessen Horowitz a little bit, in that one of the guys, I saw him speak, and he defined the cloud native industry in such an articulate and insightful way that it was like, and he spoke about Aqua like he worked there, like he knew like a spy. Like he knew so much about its past, its direction, the industry. Like he just was like deadpan, just talking about it. Those guys are creepy good. So it's it's good that's a good acquisition. I'm really why though? What's the motivation, do you think? Does the new stack make a lot of money? Like, is it?
I mean, a
don't
lot
know.
of different cloud providers will push marketing campaigns to the new stack. So I'm
Yeah,
not
sure.
shocked by that. I think the other thing is depending on what companies Insight invests in as well, you can give preferential articles, you can have more in-depth campaigns, you can push advertising in different ways. So like you said, if Insight is invested in Aqua and some other companies, they could get preferential treatment and messaging pushed in a different method, right? Like you're literally investing into a source of distributed medium, right? Like a media website. And then now you have a little bit more creative control over what goes in that medium. So,
Oh my goodness. You're right. It's like Rupert Murdoch.
yeah.
Oh no.
And
It's going to
honestly,
become alt right or something.
yeah, pushing the Aqua message, alt right.
I don't know, but you're right. Yeah, they own the major media source. So
yeah,
I hope it just gets more awesome and doesn't suddenly get really biased.
I don't think it will. I think there's still going to be a level of being impartial, because honestly, that's why people like things like the new stack. Is there is a little bit of everything that you can find there. And it's a lot more high level, I think. Like if you're a developer of sysadmin, you're probably gonna go like opensource.org or something like that. So just watch it and be aware of that stuff.
Well spoken. All right. Yeah, pretty cool. So we are now tool time?
Yeah. Are you ready for?
Does everybody know what time it is?
Yeah, every time.
Okay.
Gets me.
All right. So you just mentioned something, and let me crank that up there. So how to install a Kubernetes load balancer on Raspberry Pi Home Lab with MetalLB, opensource.com. Wait, is that the same as opensource.org?
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's the Red Hat one.
Yeah, opensource.com.
Yeah. I was looking for a load balancer for my Pi cluster, which, by the way, was it last week when I talked about the Pis, and I talked about I was doing measurement on the. Let's just pause for a second so I can put. Was it Waleed? If he's probably not watching, but he might watch in the future. He put me onto Cube. I don't know how to
STR.
Cube,
yeah.
STR, and said it does measures persistent volume performance. And I had made my own, and I was really proud of it. And it turns out that doesn't work on Pi. It doesn't build for ARM64. So I would have had to go and get all that source and rebuild all that. And it's using the same executable. So it's the exact same stuff as the one I did. So there was a reason. There's a good reason I did what I did. Check out my Docker Hub, Eurogig, if you want to do performance on a Pi. Boom. I haven't made a GitHub out of it yet. So back to just to put the record straight. And I needed a load balancer on my Pis that was like kind of almost stupid, like just so dead simple that, well, it's for bare metal. Essentially, that's what Raspberry Pis are, right? And I found this article on opensource.com, which rocks. And it's, when you read a how-to article, there's like three types. There's one that says, hi, Kubernetes is a blah, blah, blah. They do a little bit of that at the beginning, right? What they start defining Kubernetes, or when you watch a how-to video and they go, okay, let's open VS Code. I'm like, no, have it open already. Come on, don't waste my time. This rocks. It explains you need ARP, you need this, you need the basics of what you need up and turned on, which for the most part is turned on by default in most operating systems on Pi. And then it talks about MetalLB, which I think I've got here, where you can go look at, they have a pretty awesome domain, metalLB.universe.tf. All right, that's weird. The installation has a few bits in it you don't have to pay any attention to. And what's awesome is this article knows that and skips them.
Mhm.
And then just goes straight in and says, really, all you got to do is create the namespace, which you could do manually if you really wanted to, and then do this manifest. Now, obviously, don't pay attention to that version. Go over here, and they've always got, so it's at 0.10.2 right now. So grab this nearly unreadable text here, and pile that in, and then from there, it's super ridiculously simple. Then you create a config map, which actually it's easier over here. The instructions are better here. So they create this config map. They're using this CIDR. I did one like this because I'm using a crappy little router behind me, and I know that everything from 200 up is clear. So I just did 1.200 to 1.250 in place of there. Whack that in place, and then once it was there, it was good to go. And that was like it was that simple.
That is awesome.
And so you can see that the end of it is here. I created a kubeverify nginx. It created 3 of them. I looked at the service, which was created which was load balancer, which then it automatically just listens for the load balancer type, and then bam.
So if you create a load balancer in Kubernetes instead of, let's say, a node port or a cluster IP, you'll automatically get a public IP in that range that you set.
And then it grabs the IP from my home router, which is here, and makes it the external IP. And you can see there's my service here. How simple is that? Just because I said load balancer, MetalLB just went, oh, that's me. Used DHCP, grabbed me something, assigned it, knew it was free. Job done. And this is all very last minute, of course. So if I do go here, oh, there's
crazy.
There. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so simple.
Really cool.
That is just, I love when stuff just works. It never happens. And MetalLB, it rocks. And what feels like almost self-conscious about it is that when you go to the top and you start reading, it's like, this is, oh, careful, it's a beta system. Oh, be careful, use the kid gloves. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is the most easy, robust thing I have put into my cluster like ever.
Yeah.
Like my rook stuff is broken for which I talked about being successful. It's busted because I rebooted the whole lot before I did this, and it got all new IP addresses, and rook stuff broke because the monitor
oh no,
the monitor comes up and configures itself. There's a little bit of like operator style nonsense in there, and I guess it gets the IP address and thinks it's going to be that forever. So once they all changed, it was like suddenly the monitor didn't connect, which meant my Prometheus couldn't get its persistent volume, which meant it can start when Grafana couldn't find Prometheus. So this whole trickle, nothing of that, all that's broken now. But this works. So there we go.
Oh, what's the replica set that's normally used for databases in Kubernetes? Well, I'm blanking on it right now. Instead of deployments,
the replica sets that's normally used for databases. You're going to Google it, aren't you? Or DuckDuckGo it or whatever.
Kubernetes. Yeah, that was always the issue with databases, right? Is stateful sets. Thank you. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, because like stateful sets, normally like you need some sort of hard-coded IP or something that doesn't change for a lot of these databases because that's the way they've been configured.
Yeah.
It always creates issues with this stuff. And so I don't know how you deployed Ceph, but stateful set will kind of help you get around that. Because stateful sets get priority in the cluster. So they'll get a cluster IP and that one will never change.
Yeah.
And then when you add it, it always goes from like if it's like, you call it like CP something, it's like CP0. And then if you scale it, it'll go CP1, CP2, CP3, but then it always scales down from 3 to 1. So like that one, the first one that you create is just always stateful and doesn't change, has the same cluster IP and same domain in the cluster. I don't know if that's it, but that would probably be the way to get around that.
You know what? I should do one of those David McKay clustered sessions and then say, all right, come on, everybody, try and fix my rook Ceph. That's the exciting thing we're going to do live. Maybe we'll do that next week, right? But yeah, all right, that's a good possibility. Yeah, and when it doesn't, yeah, what are you talking about? My accent is amazing. When it doesn't work on the weekend, then we'll see what happens. But yeah, so that was it. I knew that was going to be a quick demo, but
Yeah.
quick
MetalLB,
demo is a good demo
congratulations.
when everything works.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys rock. That's really cool. And I think that's the end of our show.
That is the end of the show. Look at that. Right on an hour. Spot on.
And
So
our
hopefully
cameras,
everyone
both our
else-
cameras worked.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Look at that. No technical issues. MetalLB coming through big with a nice
I know.
clean demo.
Sweet.
Yeah, no, I gotta go check it out. Yeah. So well, we went through a lot. Went through software analysis. We have defend matrix, ransomware attacks, facial recognition. Sweet. Yeah. Feel like we see, check it out on YouTube. And
See you next week.
hold on, real quick. Is everybody gonna be here next week? It's Canada Day, Thursday. Long weekend.
Oh shoot. No, I'm not. We don't have a show next week.
Yeah. Gotta celebrate.
All right. See
No
you
show
in
next week. Yeah. Have a long weekend. See you in 2 weeks.
time.
All right. I'm Mike
Amazing.
Foster.
I'm Steve Giguere.